Whereas an end blown flute, you might mic it, like a Native American flute. When I play that, it might be mic'd further down. But this, it's all about here, and then it's just a matter of not blowing directly the wind noise direct into it. So it's sort of like. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Good morning. Welcome to the worship of First Unitarian Church. For those who don't know me, my name is Russell, and I am honored to be your worship associate today. Whether you're attending in person or online, I'm glad you have chosen to join us today. Special welcome to visitors. Do we have any visitors this morning? Okay. We hope you feel at home here. This congregation is a community of all ages and abilities. It is a community with a rainbow of gender and sexual identities. It is a community of diverse cultural and class backgrounds. We draw from many resources of inspiration and share common liberal religious values. Wherever you are, we welcome you to bring your whole self into this community. If you are joining us online this morning, you are encouraged to create a YouTube account. That way you can make comments when you view. You can also use comments to share your joys and concerns that will be lifted up in worship, to say hello to other online attendees, or to share something about how the service connected with you. For those of you here in person, you are invited to, after the service, to go down to the common room, stairs there and there. Today, our presentation is from our UU Vote team. Our church occupies the traditional treaty lands of the Omaha and Oto to Missouri tribal nations, whose sovereignty existed long before the state of Nebraska. We'd also like to express our respect to the Ponca tribes of Nebraska, the Winnebago tribe of Nebraska, Santu Sioux tribe of Nebraska, and over 170 other tribes represented within the Omaha area. At First Unitarian Church of Omaha, we invite all to join us to go beyond acknowledgement by educating ourselves and supporting causes, charities, and rights of indigenous peoples in the area. Thank you, Judy. This morning, I'm going to invite Valerie up to light the flaming chalice for us this morning. The words to our chalice lighting is located in your order of service or in the teal hymnal. I believe we also have them on the screen. Spark of the Spirit, cupped in earth's embrace, the light of love alive in all creation. As we kindle this flame, we rekindle our connection to the sacred web of life. Our call to worship this morning, the words by Pat Urbe Lichty. We gather, we bring our sorrows, our disappointments, our failures. We gather for healing, for laughter, and to rejoice. We gather to find new ways of loving, new ways of thinking, and new ways of being. We gather. Yes, always we gather, for it is in gathering that we find our hope. So our opening hymn this morning is 1014 in the Teal Hymnal, Answering the Call of Love. I'm going to invite Carol Ramsey up. She's going to do a selection of readings from John Lewis.
Good morning. I am reading excerpts from the essay. Can you hear me okay? From the essay which John Lewis wrote shortly before his death. He requested that it be published on the day of his funeral, which was July 30th, 2020. Here are his words. While my time here has now come to an end, I want you to know that in the last days and hours of my life, you inspired me. You filled me with hope about the next chapter of the great American story when you used your power to make a difference in our society. Millions of people, motivated simply by human compassion, laid down the burdens of division. Around the country, around the country and the world, you set aside race, class, age, language, and nationality to demand respect for human dignity. Ordinary people with extraordinary vision can redeem the soul of America by getting in what I call good trouble, necessary trouble. Voting and participating in the democratic process are key. The vote is the most powerful, nonviolent change agent that you have in a democratic society. You must use it because it is not guaranteed. You can lose it. Though I may not be here with you, I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. In my life, I have done all I can to demonstrate that the way of peace, the way of love and nonviolence is the more excellent way. Now, it is your turn to let freedom ring.
Thank you, Carol. We do have some announcements this morning. First off, I'm going to invite Sarah up to discuss the auction.
Good morning. I'm not discussing it. I'm going to keep it really brief today because there's a lot going on. The auction is coming up online only this year for bidding from the 18th through the 25th. All the info is downstairs at the auction table, and everyone who regularly receives the e-blast will also receive a detailed email with all the whats and hows and ifs about the auction. The party is on the 25th, starts at 6:30 down below in the common room. We have a costume contest, a live dessert auction this year, and just tons of fun. I see Beth there in the back. If all of you want to turn around real quick, I see an solicited auction item live in action. So 2 different sizes of this shirt are in our auction catalog, which already has over 120 entries. So we have lots and lots of good stuff this year. If you have any questions, come find me or email the auction email. That's all in your e-blast. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. John, would you like to come up?
Okay, can you all hear me fine? Sounds like it. I'm John Wagner, and I'm representing the Sarah Jocelyn Society in our annual request to join this society. As I was thinking about remarks for today concerning the Sarah Jocelyn Society, I was struck by the relevance of the creation of the Sarah Jocelyn Society 20 years ago and discussions the last few months about the repairs needed for our beautiful church. So a bit of history for anybody who's not been around here for a while. 20 years ago, Dixie Lemon, a longtime member of the church, was strong-armed into being a member of the Finance Committee, which had oversight of the Capital Trust. And the Capital Trust, she asked how much was in it, because that was kind of the future of the church. And she was told, gee, after 90 years, we have almost $300,000. She was appalled. She said that's not nearly enough to plan for and take care of this congregation and this church for the future. So she created the Sarah Jocelyn Society, named in honor of the church's largest donor, Sarah Jocelyn, who basically paid for the bulk of this church 100 years ago. Now, if you're not real familiar with it, most organizations have planning like this. Planned giving is what we're really talking about. It simply refers to including a provision in your will to provide a bequest to an organization like our church, or maybe making the church a beneficiary or partial beneficiary of a life insurance policy, providing a stock gift, creating a remainder trust. There's a lot of fancy ways to do it if you happen to be wealthy. And we can provide you more information on those if you want it. But again, most organizations like First Unitarian Church of Lincoln, the University of Nebraska, they all have organizations like this. Today, the Sarah Jocelyn has 86 members, of which 31 are deceased, but the bequests of those 31 members over the last 20 years have exceeded $700,000 and most of it's gone to the Capital Trust, a little bit simply to the church. It's those bequests which have provided the church with an enviable financial position to address the repair damages that we face today. And for those of you who haven't been around the finance side, it's very rare that the church actually runs a profit or surplus based upon just pledges and stuff. In fact, it's usually a challenge like it's been for the last 5 years at least. So bequests are the foundation of our financial wealth and ability to do this. But more will probably be needed in the future. So I encourage everybody to consider including our church in your end-of-life financial planning. And if you do expect to include the church, or even better if you actually do it, just tell me or Reverend Sherry or Walt, and we'll be happy to include you in the Sarah Jocelyn Society if you want to. And if you want to stay anonymous, you can do that. We actually have a number of anonymous members of the Jocelyn Society also. We'll take your word for it. We don't ask you how much or how you're doing it because we trust you. We should. And in fact, to show you how easy it is, right before the service started today, one of our members walked up and said, "Oh, by the way, I have done this." So we have one more person today, which is really cool. And as Dixie Lemon said about bequest and the like, you'll never miss the money. Obviously, you won't be here. Thank you.
Okay, just two more quick announcements. The worship team is always actively searching for members. We're slowly growing. We took a big hit last May. It's going to become more important to us as we progress into next year and Reverend Sherry goes on sabbatical. The worship team is going to be covering a lot more services. And so we really do, if you have an interest in it, be happy to talk to you about it. Last announcement is, don't forget we have town hall today after coffee hour. Each week, we share our blessings with others through a community offering. Half the loose currency in the offering plate is donated to a local cause which resonates with UU values. If you are online or prefer to give via your smartphone, you can use the QR code or link provided. Our Share the Plate recipient this month is Claire's Cares from Claire Memorial United Methodist Church in North Omaha. They do a tremendous service, and they're gearing up for Thanksgiving. And clearly, I have lost my place. Colin, will you join us, come up here for Joys and Concerns? Let's do the offering first. All right. Okay. Thank you, Della. Our guest musician this morning is Paul Horacek. Let's have a big round of applause for him. Before we move into joys and concerns, do have a last-minute breaking news announcement. Yes Group in Omaha, Youth Emergency Services, they're doing a Dance for a Chance event coming up, and they're desperate need of extra hands on Wednesday morning, October 16th from 9:30 to 10:30. Think it's like the Dancing with the Star, but with Omaha. They've got about 20 dance floor boards, about 15 pounds each, that they need to be brought in. If you're available to help for just an hour, they'll make sure that there's some Casey's Breakfast Pizza waiting for you and a thank you. It's at the Astro in La Vista. If you can help or know anyone that can, they would love to have you join them. Colin?
From Della Bynum, saying, please pray for Elaine Wells, who has experienced respiratory failure and is in a hospital in Italy. Please pray for her to be released from the hospital in 3 days and that she has a safe return back to Omaha. From Jason Horacek, saying, my father went to the emergency room this morning, very worried. Please keep in your prayers. Thank you. And don't know who this is from, but today is Clergy Appreciation Day. Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you, sir. For our contemplation today, I invite you to make yourself comfortable, close your eyes, find your center, take a couple deep breaths while I share these words from Dana Edwards. Holy One of many names and beyond naming, we know that the fight against tyranny, oppression, fascism, hate, and division is not a new fight, but a struggle that goes back to the very beginning of this nation. There are those who would use the institutions to keep our poor and marginalized people disempowered, silent, and struggling. And we know that when we live into our highest ideas, these same institutions can be tools to affirm inherent worth and dignity of all people. With the grace and strength of divine love to carry us forward into the struggle, we who have been pushed to the margins won't be silenced anymore. O Spirit of life and love, fortify us with the wisdom and tenacity of our ancestors to continue a new way forward, promise that is written into the founding documents of our nation, a nation where we all are created as equals, are endowed with the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I invite you now to have a moment of self-reflection, and I will end that period with the sound of the gong. presentation today is going to be by the members of our vote, UU the Vote. First, I'm going to invite up Dave Richardson.
So good morning from the UU the Vote team. We really appreciate this chance to talk about our team, the UU the Vote team, and why we keep sending out those often admittedly redundant announcements about upcoming events. I hope we can give you some rationale and reasoning for what our team does and why we do it. After my remarks, Linda Parker will talk to you about our upcoming forum on Project 2025, and she'll be followed by Linda Hess, who will give you some information about the 6 ballot initiatives on this November ballot. One of the things I'm going to mention here, I just noticed my computer will be a contradiction to. We can't endorse candidates, and as I was sitting there and I noticed what I had there, I also have some stuff from Woody Guthrie on here too that says this machine kills fascists. That's what he had on his guitar. So I'm contradicting my computer contradicts my remarks in some cases. Well, when we planned this service, the dates for early voting and mail-in balloting had not been announced. So some of this is kind of ex post facto because, of course, some of you, like me, have already voted. But we hope this information is useful in making decisions. Even if, like I said, you have voted already, like me, this can help you encourage friends, family, neighbors, coworkers, etc., to exercise that right to vote, and perhaps maybe even learn a little bit about the issues, the candidates, and the offices they are running for, especially these so-called down-ballot races, which are so important anymore. It's never been more important to go to the polls. So why is it important? Well, first of all, let me get to the place I want to be. That's what's first of all. Maybe I'll get there. The UUA actually started the idea of UU the Vote in 2020, and they encouraged congregations to start efforts to get out the vote, GOTV as we call it, to hundreds of congregations, and including ours, took up the challenge. And we learned that our 501c3 tax status as a nonprofit entity allows us to discuss and participate in forums, to support key issues, and other areas of civic engagement. We, of course, cannot and do not endorse candidates or allow campaigning for individuals, either from the pulpit, don't look, unless all the candidates and their positions are allowed in the same forum. Of course, members acting as individuals are not prevented from taking any active role in support of candidates of their own choosing. Perhaps some of you have seen the campaign ad that longtime member Ray Berry and her husband are involved in. They are supporting the candidate of their choice. So, why is participation of this type so important? Well, the first reason is we're called to this by our UU principles. Both our longstanding 7 principles and the recently adopted Article 2 values urge justice and equity. The 7 principles, which many of us still hold as the core of our UU beliefs, include the responsible search for truth and meaning in life. That's a direct quote. Another direct quote from our principles: the use of the democratic process that our congregations, in our congregations and in society as a whole. Unlike many faith groups, we model the concept of democracy and voting through our congregational polity. So, what kind of activities do we do? Here's some examples. We do GOTV activities, starting with voter registration. You may remember last spring we helped voters to get registered online during coffee hour. Also during coffee hour, we provided opportunities to sign petitions which resonate with UU values. We've held GOTV postcard parties using voter lists often supplied by the DWLOV, Diverse Women Lifting Our Voices. These lists target women in various demographic groups in Douglas and Sarpy County. We will also be conducting a forum on Project 2025, which Linda Parker will be talking about shortly. We encourage writing to elected representatives. We encourage poll monitoring. As you know, probably, that our church is a polling place, and several of our congregants provide help as hosts and ensuring our safety and security on election day. Also, a quick plug for our donation to the the Heart and Hand auction. Beth, are you out there? Stand up. Okay. Yes, you too can own that t-shirt. One of many delightful items at the Heart and Hand auction. Our allies include the League of Women Voters, Second Unitarian, who did an excellent forum not long ago on the ballot issues, OTOC, Omaha Together, One Community, and the aforementioned DWLOV. Here's some of the activities that are coming up. A Women's Issues Candidate Forum. This is sponsored by DWLOV, and it will take place Tuesday, the 15th, from 5:30 until 7:45 at the venue at the Highland Accelerator on North 30th Street. You can sign up through an Eventbrite site, and if you have questions, talk to Carol Ramsey. OTOC is conducting an accountability session next Sunday at 2 p.m. at St. Pius Church. The candidates in CD2 and statewide will be there. So you could make it a double header. You could go to Linda's presentation on 2025 right after the service, and then go out to 78th and Blondo and check out OTOC's forum. Nebraska state law mandates that the Nebraska Secretary of State must hold public hearings on the ballot measures. There are one in each one of the 3 congressional districts. The hearings for CD2 will take place on the weekend of Friday, October 25th and Saturday, October 26th at the UNO Thompson Alumni Center. You can get the details from any of the websites, ne.gov, etc. Our official positions at First Unitarian. We have several positions that we adopted by congregational vote. Now, these are the ones where we can say First Unitarian endorses or supports blah, blah, blah. First, Black Lives Matter, a position that was adopted several years ago. You may recall a sermon delivered here by Shmika Simpson of the Malcolm X Foundation, in which she challenged us to walk the walk, not just talk the talk about Black Lives Matter. Reproductive rights. The congregation has given our endorsement to abortion rights. Several members recently attended a press conference for the local Ministerial Alliance for Reproductive Rights, at which Reverend Sherry sang, accompanied by Kyle Knapp. We have also attended unicameral hearings and will be in attendance at several upcoming forums on reproductive rights. LGBTQ. We can participate and demonstrate our support for the rights of LGBTQ persons. We can publicly support legislation that affirms the rights of LGBTQ persons. We participated in the Pride Parade. We voted 20 years ago to become an official welcoming congregation. This past year, we reaffirmed as a congregation, our status as a welcoming congregation. We encourage you to attend and speak at public hearings on all of these matters. Passion has a place in politics, as the late civil rights leader John Lewis echoed in that eloquent letter that he published posthumously, which Carol read earlier. Be good troublemakers. In an active democracy, the real enemy is not just the candidates and positions that we oppose. The enemy is the apathy that keeps people from voting. Democracy is not a spectator sport. It is a participant sport. Voting empowers us not only by affecting the outcome of the election, but it looks to our community and our country as we increase our involvement in civic engagement. Richard Haas, in his book, The Bill of Obligations, said that voting is not just a right, it is an obligation. Former Speaker of the House Tip O'Neill famously said, "All politics is local. Candidates and elected representatives want to hear from constituents." Nebraska's unique system of giving electoral votes by congressional district is a great example of enhanced democracy. The election is within sight, and we have the opportunity to be the person who stayed home, avoiding that obligation. We also have the opportunity to vote and support democracy. And now we'll hear from Linda Parker.
Good morning. An important function of an important function of the UU The Vote team is to provide educational programs about issues of interest to Unitarians. One such issue is the extreme conservative movement's blueprint for reshaping the American government. A program is scheduled for next Sunday, October 20th, from noon to 1:30 in our sanctuary to learn more about this blueprint, known as the Mandate for Leadership, a Conservative Promise. The mandate presents the policies which provide for the action steps, often known as Project 2025. This mandate is coordinated by the Heritage Foundation. A quote from the website of the mandate helps us understand why we need to be familiar with this document. Quote, "Our goal is to assemble an army of aligned, vetted, trained, and prepared conservatives to go to work on day one to deconstruct the administrative state. This book is the product of more than 400 scholars and policy experts from across the conservative movement and around the country. Contributors include former elected officials, world-renowned economists, and veterans from 4 presidential administrations. This is an agenda prepared by and for conservatives who will be ready on day one of the next administration to save our country. The Heritage Foundation is once again facilitating this work, but as our dozens of partners and hundreds of authors will attest, this book is the work of the entire conservative movement. The next conservative president will enter office on January 20th, 2025, with a simple choice: greatness or failure. It will be a daunting test, but no more so than every other generation of Americans has faced and passed. The conservative promise represents the best effort of the conservative movement in 2023 and the next conservative president's last opportunity to save our republic." End quote. Indeed, let us save our republic. We cannot cover every issue contained in the 922-page document. Instead, in next week's session, we will see several videos which highlight selected issues. For example, one video is an interview with a leading author of Mandate for Leadership. Other videos include excerpts from training videos on trust and collaboration skills to implement the mandate. Yet another video discusses issues of concern for all citizens. And I will provide a brief history of the Mandate for Leadership series, which began around the time of the Reagan administration. The videos will be followed by a guided discussion to consider the impact of ideas described in the document. The discussion questions are designed to provoke wider thoughts about democracy and its parameters. In light of the 501c3 regulations, the program will be educational only. No candidate running for any elected office will be endorsed or opposed. Please join us next Sunday, October 20th, noon to 1:30 in the sanctuary. Thank you.
Our last speaker is Linda Hess.
Good morning. Please let me know if you have any trouble hearing me. I am going to read my presentation because it has a lot of details and numbers, and I want to try and get them right. Beth, does that just mean hi, or? Okay. I am going to discuss the ballot measures that Nebraska voters will see on their ballots, but first I want to talk about two issues or measures that are on Iowa ballots, because I know we have some Iowa voters here. The two proposed amendments to the Iowa Constitution are, first, an amendment dealing with succession should the office of governor become vacant, and then filling the vacancy in the office of the lieutenant governor. The second amendment proposed is modifying the language about who are qualified voters in Iowa by age and citizenship. The regulations are already in practice, and the amendment won't change any current standards. It will only put them into the Iowa Constitution. Nebraska voters have 6 measures on their ballot. 5 are initiatives, 1 is a referendum. The difference is an initiative is the voters bringing something to the people. It's initiated by the voters. The referendum is the voters bringing to the voters an action on existing legislation. On initiatives, you vote yes or no. On a referendum, you vote repeal or retain. So I'll remind you of that as we get to the specific ones. When you came in, you probably got a handout from the League of Women Voters that has the ballot measures for Nebraska on them. You may want to take notes just to keep the numbers straight. Depending on which jurisdiction you are in, your ballot may look different. I live in the city of Omaha. My ballot, which I have got by mail, has 2 sheets of paper in it. One says page 1, the other one says page 2. On the front of page 2 are all of the bond issues for the city of Omaha. On the back side are all of the ballot measures. On all ballots in Nebraska, the measures are in numerical order. I'm not going to address them in numerical order. I'm going to mix them up. Okay, so to get to the Nebraska measures, first of all, are initiative measures 437 and 438, which concern medical cannabis. Measure 437, if adopted, would permit possession and acquisition of medical cannabis by patients and their caregivers. Measure 438, if adopted, would enact the medical cannabis issue for possession manufacture, distribution, delivery, and dispensing of medical cannabis by registered private entities and would establish a regulatory commission. There are lawsuits still pending about the validity of the petitions that put these measures on the ballot. Our UU the Vote team did not take a position on these two measures. Paid sick leave is Initiative Measure 435. It would establish a paid sick leave program for Nebraska employees. Larger employers in Nebraska are already governed by the federal Family and Medical Leave Act, FMLA. FMLA provides unpaid leave for those companies or employees of those companies with 50 or more employees. Initiative Measure 436 would require Nebraska businesses to offer paid sick leave for employees, up to 7 days per year for businesses with 20 or more employees, and 5 days for businesses with fewer than 20 employees. Our UU the Vote team suggests you vote yes on Initiative 436. Referendum Measure 435. This is the one you would vote repeal or retain. If it passes, would partially repeal LB 1402, which passed in 2024. For the last couple years, you may have followed the legislative debates about using tax dollars for private schools. First, the legislature passed LB 753 to give tax credits to those taxpayers who contributed to education scholarships for students attending private elementary and secondary schools. The next year, the legislature adopted LB 1402. LB 1402 had two parts. The first part would authorize tax dollars for education scholarship programs to cover all or part of the cost of attending non-governmental, privately operated elementary or secondary schools. LB 1402 set a $10 million budget for the fiscal year 2024-25. If going by the history of this type of program in other states around the country, it is not unexpected that the legislature, if this is adopted and goes into law, would increase that amount from 10 million up to, in some cases, several hundred thousand, or even up to millions of dollars. The legislature could change the budget in any future legislative session. This is the part of 1402 the referendum measure 435 seeks to repeal. LB 1402 Part 2 eliminated LB 753, which was the tax credit for donations to scholarship funds. So 753 is already out. LB 1402 Part 1 is what referendum measure is trying to repeal. UU the Vote team suggests you vote repeal on referendum measure 435 to keep tax dollars from funding private schools. Lastly, there are two abortion issues on the ballot. They are 434 and 439. So on your ballot, 434 is going to be first, 439 is going to be last. Initiative Measure 434 is the one promoted as Protect Our Women and Children. It would amend the Nebraska Constitution to provide that unborn children shall be protected from abortion in the second and third trimester, except in cases of medical emergencies or pregnancies resulting from sexual assault or incest. Our UU the Vote team suggests you vote no on 434. Initiative Measure 439 is the Protect Our Rights measure. The measure would amend the Constitution to provide a fundamental right to abortion until fetal viability, generally around 23 weeks of pregnancy, or as a result of fetal medical conditions, or to protect the life and health of the pregnant patient in the professional judgment of the patient's treating healthcare practitioner, without interference from the state or any of its political subdivisions. In alignment with this church's stand on reproductive rights, our UU the Vote team asks you to vote yes on Measure 439. If either of these two measures passes, abortion will be in the Nebraska Constitution, making it more difficult to change what happens with reproductive rights in Nebraska in future years. If both measures receive more yes than no votes, the one that receives the most yes votes will become law, according to our Secretary of State, Robert Evnen. That's why we ask, the UU the Vote team asks you to vote no on 434 and yes on 439. To recap, the UU the Vote team urges you to vote on Measure 436, yes to establish the paid sick leave program. On referendum Measure 435, vote repeal to repeal the taxpayer-funded scholarship program for private schools in LB 1402. Vote no on Initiative Measure 434, the Protect Our Women and Children measure, and on 439, the Protect Our Rights measure. Please vote yes. You can see any member of the UU Vote team, not just Linda, Dave, or me, for more information about any of these ballot measures. And if we don't have answers, believe me, we have sources we can direct you to get more information. Thank you for your time this morning, listening to us. Thank you, and please vote.
Thank you, Linda. Our closing hymn today is one we're all very familiar with, but it's also very interesting to me that it is the identical song with lyrics to Pete Seeger's How Can I Keep From Singing? We'll close with the words from Mark Graves. You are not here on this planet in this lifetime to tread lightly. You are here to rock boats, to shatter paradigms that paralyze, You are here to be seen, heard, loved, and praised. And if you do not let yourself be seen, then please tell me who else will see you. The world needs you as you are. The world needs your expression. The world needs your anger. When you shift, we all shift. Your rebellion is ours.
Please feel free to sing along if you know this piece. Come gather round, people, wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept that it soon will be drenched to the bone. If their time to you is worth saving, then you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, 'cause the times they are changing. From writers and critics who prophesize with their pen, and keep your eyes wide, the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin, and there's no telling who that it's naming. For the losers now will be later to win, for the times they are a-changing. The line it is drawn, the curse it is cast. The small one now will be later be fast, as the present now will later be past. The order is rapidly changing, and the first one now will later be last, and the times they are changing, and the times they are changing, and the times they are changing.
To borrow the words from Dave, peace out.